We're going to learn about plate tectonics. So there's some theories that lead up to it. First of all, it's continental drift theory. Alfred Wegener proposed the idea that the continents all once fit together in a giant landmass called Pangaea and had tons of evidence to support it. He just couldn't explain how those plates were moving. Plate tectonic theory then elaborated on his hypothesis or his ideas in the 1960s, and it became what we now know as plate tectonic theory. So new scientific technology could determine that in the Atlantic Ocean, the seafloor is spreading along the mid-ocean ridge. They could figure out how deep the Earth's crust is. And then they also figured out volcanoes and earthquakes were occurring along major plate boundaries. One of the big things that they figured out was that convection, the rising and cooling of molecules due to density differences, hotter molecules are going to rise up near the surface and cooler molecules are going to sink because when they get cooler, they condense and they get denser, so they're going to sink. And that movement of molecules within the mantle is what's causing the big rock crustal plates moving in the Earth's crust. So you're going to have to know the three different types of plate movements and what's associated with each type of plate movement. So at the edge of all the tectonic plates, these are called plate boundaries. And movements along these plate boundaries are going to cause crustal features. There are three types of movement. There's convergent, where the two plates are colliding. You have divergent boundaries, in which the plates are separating or diverging from one another. And then you have when two plates are side by side and they're sliding past each other. Sometimes you're going to get an oceanic plate that collides with a continental plate. That can form an oceanic trench. It can form volcanic art. It can form volcanic mountains. And volcanoes often erupt in these mountain ranges at this type of boundary. Another type is continent versus continent. And this is where it's two cars just colliding head on in a car wreck. And so over time, those two crustal plates are just colliding into one another, and it's literally creating uplift. It's destroying the Earth's crust. And because the Earth's crust is getting destroyed, mountains build up over time. Another type of convergent boundary is when the oceanic crust collides with another oceanic crust. And it's going to form oceanic trenches and specifically island arcs where seafloor volcanoes are formed. Divergent boundary is when the plates are separating and magma is going to come out. It's going to cool and harden and form igneous rock. And over time, this is how new ocean floor is formed. So all the time, new ocean floor is being made. And the ocean basin is going to expand. So if this were the mid-ocean ridge in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, what's actually happening is the Atlantic Ocean is getting bigger and bigger. And it forms a ridge here with a central valley. And seafloor volcanoes can also form along this ridge. And that's what we call a mid-ocean ridge. Transform boundaries, the most famous one is the San Andreas Fault. And along this type of plate boundary, the plates are side by side and going in opposite directions. And this is how earthquakes form. So these are the main ideas of the three different types of boundaries and the kinds of things associated with each type of boundary.